The human being is bearer of a spirit that does not die, and that, even in deepest sleep of the human being, never sleeps, that records all thoughts and impulsations, that tells the human being whether her thoughts are right or wrong, if she has learned to pay attention to it. This spirit within the human being is the bearer of the creational realm, and it is characteristic of all human beings. It is incomprehensible that the human being speaks of a heaven and of a kingdom of heaven in him or herself, and does not simply content with just saying, creation, truth, knowledge, essence of wisdom, spirit, consciousness, and existence. The human yearning lies in the joy that remains, in the immortal life, the lasting peace, the spiritual and consciousness-based richness that never passes and lasts eternally. Firmaments and earth will pass away, but truth, knowledge, essence of wisdom and spirit will never be variable or pass away. The spirit and the consciousness keep a lookout for the absolutely fully developed, for harmony, for peace, cognition and recognition, for knowledge, essence of wisdom, truth and beauty, for love and for the true being, which are altogether of absolute duration. They all together result in that which forms the spiritual kingdom. They are all present in the creational. They all are there in the existence, as genius of all ingenuity, as melody of all melodies, as ability of all abilities, as highest creational principle, as miracle above all miracles. In the dream the human being is able to create worlds of miracles, just as the creation consciously creates the worlds. For the human being this ability grows out of her consciousness, which in the existence is present in her, in the same way as all miracles are present in her. She himself herself is the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of the creational. That is why the ancient philosophers of the earth spoke of the human being as the microcosm in the macrocosm, because everything that is contained in the universe is also present in the human being. The dimensions of the inner within the human being are endless. The image of the creation, the spirit in her, the existence that is dimensionless, it includes all dimensions in it and transcends, at the same time, all dimensions. The spirit is the miracle of all miracles, from which all power arises. But a miracle means use of the power of the spirit in fulfillment. The human being, however, takes a miracle as a basis for something for which she lacks all possibilities of a logical explanation. If a human being is happy, then her happiness comes from within, because happiness is a self-created state, but happiness is never a location. Joy comes from the inner of the human being, created from spiritual and consciousness-based equalizedness. Hence everything comes from within. The things and human beings that seem to form the cause of happiness are only the external occasion for the happiness in the human being to express itself, if he or she has been consciously working towards it. But happiness is something that also belongs to the innermost, to the spiritual inner core nature, and it is an inseparable attribute of the existence of the creation. Unending happiness and unending power are contained in this existence. The human being may be externally old, but this is only a transitional matter. 50 years ago she was not old yet and will also no longer be old in 50 years when her body is dead, because only it can become old and frail. The spirit, however, remains eternally young and is never subject to signs of aging. The age is something like the youth or the childhood, like worries, grief or problems, something that passes, in the same way as all external conditions and experiences of the world pass. What is lasting is the existence of the spirit, the truth, the knowledge, the essence of wisdom, the reality. It is necessary to recognize them and to build them up, because only they make the human being free. If the human being recognizes the existence of his or her spirit, then the old age can no longer inflict anything on him or her. No worries, no grief, no problem, no changes, and no vicissitudes of the life and the surroundings, the environment and the world will still be able to cast him into sorrow. Essence of wisdom is in your kind, immense might. Essence of wisdom is light. And wherever light lights up, darkness and unknowledgeness disappear. Unknowledgeness, however, is the real darkness, and this one is overcome by the light of the wisdom. Essence of wisdom is a characteristic of the existence of the spirit and the consciousness and carries within itself the qualities of the happiness, the truth, the knowledge, the equalizedness, the beauty, the harmony and the peace. Essence of wisdom is light. But essence of wisdom is also the characteristic of a human being who has recognized the existence of his or her spirit and of the material consciousness and who works with it based on the laws of the creation. Essence of wisdom is consciousness unfolding as well as use of consciousness power and use of spiritual power. Essence of wisdom and spirit as well as consciousness and truth are each two things that constitute one, just as the sunlight and the sun are two things. The sunlight only results from the warmth of the sun, which it first has to generate through its processes. But so, too, there is an all-creating existence in the universe, which existence creates, by virtue of own powers which, following certain creational laws, follow as truth, knowledge, and essence of wisdom the endless eons constantly and unswervingly according to a given equal guideline, and give life. This powerful existence, however, is the creation. And therefore there is only one existence which rules everywhere in the universe, only one creation, only one truth, one knowledge, and one essence of wisdom, which are equally directed and remaining the same through eternal times. The eternal truth is not subject to any fluctuations or any changes, and its laws never have to be revised and, therefore, never have to be adapted to a new time. The spiritual power is as vital and dynamic as the consciousness power, and indeed to the extent that these manifest the essence of wisdom in themselves. It is a sign of human weakness when religions and sects and their irrational teachings are portrayed as instruments of the creational, and the essence of wisdom thereby becomes unreal. The human being is then looking elsewhere for power, freedom, joy and light, just not where they really are. Essence of wisdom is a distinctive attribute of the creation, which dwells as a part of the creation, as spirit, in the human being. Therefore the human being should multiply his/her knowing essence of wisdom through his/her consciousness, and accordingly she/he will recognize the creation. She/he should multiply his/her search for truth, and accordingly she/he will know about the power of the essence of wisdom. Cognition of the truth brings liberation from all restrictions. It brings boundless knowledge and essence of wisdom. Essence of wisdom is a powerful means to recognize the laws of the creation. A human being who is filled with love is also rich in essence of wisdom, and a human being who is rich in essence of wisdom is also full of love. Yet the human being of earth deceives him or herself because she/he does not know the love. She/he interprets greedy feelings for possession and other impulsations as love, while real love, however, remains strange and ununderstood to him/her. A human being is no real human being until she/he has recognized and created the truth, the knowledge and the essence of wisdom, even if she/he does not use the word creation, since essence of wisdom is also love in best form. Thus, she/he always finds that enlightenment and recognition are knowledge and also essence of wisdom and love, and where there is love there is also essence of wisdom. Love and essence of wisdom belong together, because the creation and the laws of creation are love and essence of wisdom at the same time. Where there is essence of wisdom and knowledge, there is love and cognition, and where there is cognition and love, there is the creation. Growth in the love and essence of wisdom teach the human being to recognize the creation. But first, the human being will learn the truth and will therethrough attain freedom and peace, a peace that is immortal, a power without end. Essence of wisdom and love are the two animating wings of the creational inner nature and character. With wisdom and love, the human being is master for all creation. Essence of wisdom and love increase his/her dedication to the fulfillment of the given creational natural laws, because spirit and creation are one. The human being of earth speaks of love, which he does not know. He believes to know that her impulsations would be love and therethrough deceives himself herself. Love cannot be put into words because it is, just like the happiness, a state and not a location. True love is immortal, and nothing can ever transform it into anything else. The path of the consciousness power and the spiritual power goes beyond the cognition of the truth, the knowledge, the essence of wisdom and the love. Sense and task of the spiritual teaching therefore are to spread truth, knowledge, essence of wisdom and love. If the teaching fails to do so due to misuse or false interpretation, then it is no longer a help, but instead becomes an evil cult that enslaves the material consciousness through irrational teachings and creates unknowledgeness, as is the case with the irrational teachings of the sects and religions. But if it exercises the function of the consciousness widening and the spiritual knowledge widening, then it is a mightful instrument of the creational regulation. The spiritual teaching is about the spreading of the cognition, the truth, the knowledge, the essence of wisdom and the love, the eternal, the immortal, the everlasting that overcomes the death and spreads light, that manifests the equalizedness of the essence of wisdom and the love in itself, the peace that surpasses all understanding. Every human being believes to know what is meant by peace, by the way he knows it according to human experience. But to understand the wise peace of the unending existence, of the spirit, of the immortal creation, that quite simply surpasses her human understanding. This is because he is chained to religious irrational teachings and to human material things which deprive her of an understanding according to inner experience. The experience, which forms the true key to the true cognition and essence of wisdom. Miracles upon miracles are contained in the kingdom of the spirit. The visible universe, with which the human being is concerned, is but a small spot in this wonderful, unending, spiritual intelligence of the creation. Universes like this one are contained in countless thousand millions in the unending spiritual intelligence of the creation. What is visible to the physical eyes of the human being means only a small iota in the endlessness. What is not visible to her eyes is unmeasurable, incomprehensible, and unthinkable, confusing, and unimaginable to her unspiritual human intelligence and comprehension. All the universe, which he sees, is but one single space of many, which must be measured by myriads, because there are universes in universes, universes beyond universes, universes beneath universes, universes above universes, and universes outside the universes in this almighty, tremendous, and all creational spiritual intelligence of the existence creation. And the human being is connected with this immense spirit, with these your kind powers of the existence, of the creation, of the spiritual intelligence, because a part piece of this spirit intelligence of the creation dwells a spirit in the human being and gives life to her. Its powers, its joy, its peace, its freedom, its essence of wisdom, its knowledge and its ability are unimaginable for those consciousness-based unknowing, illogical ones, critics, know-it-alls, those dependent on religions, perverted and other misguided ones. And only a human being, who knows this truth and creates knowledge and essence of wisdom and love from it, is a human being in prosperousness. He knows the answer to the last questions of the science, the philosophy and also of the questioning human being. But to become such a human being in prosperousness, one must seek and find the truth, create knowledge from it, wisdom and love, because the human being is only able to grow spiritually and consciousness-based through truth, knowledge, essence of wisdom and love, wherethrough he is liberated from all human weaknesses. He is no earlier enlightened and completely liberated than when he remains constantly and continuously in thought in the unending creational spiritual reality. The spiritual intelligence is enlightened by law-based spiritual principles and is directed toward the creational inner core nature, the absolutely full development, and the power of the creational itself. This is in contrast to the human intelligence, because the human material consciousness is generally concerned only with individual things of the material world. But this has the consequence that the human being is constrained and hindered in every direction, indeed even captured, oppressed, plagued, and tortured by all possible forms of mishappening, weaknesses, and enslavements of all kinds. Hence, a self-analysis of the individual human being is one of the most essential methods for finding the truth and for going the way of the consciousness-based and spiritual evolution. Thus, it is necessary that the human being continuously checks her thoughts and sees what kind they really are. He has to make sure that he is ultimately always guided, led and destined by creational philosophical principles and realities, by creational natural laws. In the human being the constant conscious feeling should reign, that he belongs to the creational, with her actual spiritual breath, her actual spiritual being. Consciousness-based, it shall be clear to him that her actual spiritual being is inseparably one with the creational, so as to overcome the material outer world in this consciousness. This creational philosophical truth and cognition should always, first and foremost, control the human thinking, feeling, and acting. Because only the one who is one with the spirit can in the long run recognize and also do good, because he has the capabilities of the creation in herself. Nothing negative in the unending universe can affect and enslave her anymore. Besides this creational philosophical consciousness, there is still the practical, dynamic, creational one, that is, the mystical consciousness, which consists of the perception of the one reality in all things. May the human being therefore be a practical philosopher and mystic and perceive the reality in the changeable passing forms. After all, what is a human being? He is only a figure and a name. If one takes away the name and the figure, what is still left of her? There remains the fundamental essence, the existence, the spirit and the overall consciousness block. That human being who overlooks this, is pushed away and around by the slightest breeze of the wind, unstable, without hope of rescue and always striving to still find a firm hold somewhere, which, however, will never offer itself to him or her unless he seeks and finds the fundamental truth. Thousands of millions of human beings of Earth or other worlds look up to the stars of the firmament without any results or cognitions. However, those knowledgeable about stars, by looking up to the firmament, discover new worlds and write books about it. But what they see and recognize, others are not able to see and recognize, even if they can look up. Despite their seeing eyes, they are blind. The situation is similar with the ordinary and simply consciousness-based simple-minded, with the consciousness-based unconscious human being, the human being, who truthfully lives in accordance with the spiritual laws of the creation, sees and recognizes the creational all around in every life form, in everything, in every thought and action, in every human being, in all the activity of the nature and also in all imaginable circumstances and occurrences. The ordinary human being, however, who is consciousness-based, simple-minded and impaired by religions or other unreal teachings, is neither able to see nor to hear, nor to recognize even just one iota of the truth. His life is unconscious, but all the more pressed into human material paths. As a result, he is blind, deaf and unknowing. The human being who follows the laws of the creation becomes the most prosperous and fearless creature. Her will is insurmountable, her dedication unmeasurable and endless, and her essence of wisdom and her love permanent and absolutely fully developed, not capricious and not full of doubts like generally those of the ones who are dependent on religion and of those who are otherwise led into the unreal. Her sense resembles the vast, endless ocean and does not allow to be taken out of her stillness. He does not tremble out of anxiety. May he therefore unfold her spiritual sense, which is no longer reached by any perverted negative power. The sense, which no longer grants shelter to any negatively perverted thought and also pushes away all positively perverted thoughts and actions. Only an equalized sense which is rooted in the creational service, in the creational essence of wisdom, its knowledge, its love, and joy, which are more real than all the material walls all around and the human environment, is valuable and serving the development of consciousness and spirit. May the human being consciousness-based be always great and constructive. The spirit, the source of all unending creational upbuilding, is itself the innermost inner core nature of the human being. The human outer nature, however, is full of limitations, because it is not the inner core nature itself, but only its shell, its material body, a limitation, a matter leading into delusion, the source of hardship and pain, limited in cognition and will, in readiness to make sacrifices, in freedom, love and happiness. If the human being views his/her fellow human beings only externally, materially, then he sees nothing but the form and shape, the material of this particular human being. If, however, he sees the fellow human being with the consciousness-based and spiritual eyes of the cognition and knows that this all-witnessing consciousness in him/her is also present in all others, even if it is unrecognized by them, then the way in which he sees his/her fellow human being changes fundamentally. He then no longer simply sees a man, a woman, a girl, or a child, but sees the fellow human being as bearer of a creational spirit, which knows about itself, about its existence and wishes to reveal itself through everyone, if only the opportunity to do so would be offered to it. The one who knows the truth sees the fellow human being based on this knowledge and cognition, because he sees the creational in him/her. At the very least, he now already knows more than he knew before he recognized the truth. This proves that the unknowledgeness is nothing unalterable for all times. The human being is able to free him/herself from all unknowledge, if she is willing to accept the truth. The human being can free him/herself from everything can be taken away from him/her, except not the creational consciousness, the spirit, the existence in his/her innermost, this pure spiritual, creational realm in him/her. He can be robbed of all his/her goods and possessions and be driven out of his/her home, but no one is able to drive him/her out of his/her spiritual realm in his/her innermost. So the human being should constantly be conscious of this creational, without which he would be unable to do any breath, to conceive any conscious thought, without which he would neither be able to recognize, see, hear nor experience. That is why the great wise ones of all time say, the creational spirit is closer to the human being than the own breath. The human being is unable to escape this highest consciousness, since sooner or later he will fall into this creational reality, because it is the life of his/her life, the spirit of his/her spirit, the consciousness of his/her consciousness, the light of his/her light, the central thinking power of all life, the existence which is well above all human thinking, which, compared with all power of the human material intellectual thinking, sinks into absolute insignificance. It, the spirit, is able to live without the light of the physical eyes, just as it is able to live without hearing, arms, legs, and even without the outer intellect of the outer material consciousness. However, there is always still something present that enables it to continue living, namely its own creational power. This self-consciousness, this all-observing and all-registering spiritual consciousness in the human being, which looks at and considers his/her thoughts and impulsations and is behind all his/her thinking, which tells him/her whether he is knowing or unknowing, that is the creational, the spiritual consciousness. To ponder again and again that the spirit is almighty, ever-present, all-knowing, and beyond that, unending happiness, unending beauty, unending value, the value of all things altogether, lets the word creation become the absolute significance for the human being and brings forth evolution-based developmental changes in him/her. As often as the words spirit and creation are impressed upon him/her, psychological changes of the greatest material consciousness-based significance take place in him/her. His/her feelings and all his/her senses change. The clearer his consciousness-based intelligence becomes through this, the more, as a result, his/her personality gains in power, and the more prosperous his/her life becomes by this. A wise one full of consciousness sees what will happen in the most distant future, perhaps not until thousands of millions of years later, and she hears the entire past of the life forms and the humanity in front of his her eyes. Greatest knowledge is thus added to him her. But how is that feasible? Such a human being provides the necessary prerequisites for this in his her inner being, in the spirit. Just as light can be perceived through the closed eyelids, there is admittedly in every human being creational presence, however, the entire spiritual realm only visible for those who are also actually able to look inwards through their inner eye. It can only be useful to those who provide all the necessary prerequisites. Each human being carries within him herself the whole kingdom of the spirit, but it is covered over by the unused material consciousness and struck by unknowledgeness, erroneous assumptions, not absolutely full development, bad things, errors, and limitations of all kinds, which must be transformed into the opposite through the recognition and acceptance of the truth. All these bad things must be dissolved and cleared up, by the human being consciously developing abilities, which are opposite to everything negatively perverted and lead to a neutral equalization. The path of the experience of the spirit is accelerated through the unfolding of the consciousness and the conscious searching as well as the gathering of knowledge of the truth, and this unfolding leads to the true and all-embracing, cosmic-wide essence of wisdom and love, due to the cognition that the creation is present in everything. The human being is one with everything in the creation, in the truth, essence of wisdom and love, in the kingdom of the spirit. That truth and essence of wisdom, that the human being is separated from each other by space and time and the body, something which however is overcome through the inner experience. Essence of wisdom and love united, knowledge and truth united, the essence of wisdom and love of the consciousness and the spirit lead through experience to the oneness and to the creation as such, to the universal joy, might and relatively absolute full development. Since the human being does not know the creational and is misled by irrational teachings, in particular by sects and religions enslaving the consciousness, he makes a great many mistakes, searches for the true treasures in the wrong place and thereby violates all nature-based and creational regulation and all rules of the laws. No matter how precisely he may observe the human laws of the human society, he will nevertheless constantly violate all laws and rules and the regulation of the creational in the universe and allow him herself to be caught in human material hardships, sorrows and problems, in horrors, irrational teachings, misguidances, and inabilities, in unfortune, spiritual and consciousness-based unknowledge, and consciousness-based enslavements and limitations. The very thing that is most valuable of all is made unattainable by unreal sects, religions, and human unknowledgeness. This unknowledgeness and the religions and sects which lead into delusion, as well as other irrational teachings, mantle from the human being that which is the source of all valuable things, the life of her life, and the light of all intelligence, the spirit and the creation. The human being is to accept the entire realm of everyday life and her experiences as creational. He is to see him herself everywhere in the space and in the times and in all things. He herself is to be everything and is to awaken the creational in everything and bring it in this way into recognition and experience. Because the creation is in all and everything is animated by its spirit, where through everything is one in all. The only question is, how should the human being identify with everything if he does not know the path of the spirit? Generally he tends to identify with her body. But what happens if he tries to engage in the truth and inwardly directs herself according to the creational being and the spiritual reality? The whole world non-arbitrarily dissolves in this real reality truth of the spiritual. Everywhere the one, sole principle of the creational spiritual is in place. But how is the human being to identify with everything? May he for once see herself as she really is. In general, he identifies with her body. He cares for it like it would be a treasure, nourishes it and troubles herself about it to the point of self-sacrifice. He surrounds it with pride, frippery and a senseless delusion, while he nevertheless allows her consciousness to fade. However, because of a little pain he already becomes angry, grouchy and unpleasant towards others, or he even starts to complain and to cry, has self-pity or robs him herself of her life. He surrounds her body with an indefinable glory and with vanity, anxiety, worries, pride and problems. Always everything revolves only around her body. He often even extends her body identity to her material possessions, or he gets upset when a fellow human being touches him unwantedly. But what, on the other hand, will a human being with recognized consciousness-based and spiritual truth do? He will identify with all things and all life forms of the world and the universes. A human being full of creational spiritual essence of wisdom, full of knowledge, truth, love and cognition, who knows that everything comes out of and will for eternal times come out of the truth. Hence, he identifies with everything and everyone. In her consciousness-based being she will at the innermost level always be one with everything and everyone. At the innermost level he will identify with her spiritual consciousness and with everything in the universe, just as the other, who thinks materially, identifies with her body, with her money, with her goods and chattels, with her irrational speeches and irrational teachings and with the sound of her voice. But once the human being has identified with everything in the universe, then no hatred and no greed can dwell in him her anymore, since she no longer makes any selfish distinctions. Because he has become one with the inner core nature of everything. Others may claim something as their exclusive property, but the one who thinks in relation to the spiritual identifies it with the truth therein and, therefore, has everything internally as her own. All fear has given way from her by her identifying with the truth. This truth of the creation and of the spirit, with which he is one, even directs the hand of the enemy, which wants to rise up against her, so that it falls back on the enemy herself. The one who is thinking in relation to the spiritual is safe and protected, and the entire nature is friendly-minded towards her. In fact, even her enemies must eventually serve her. With their attacks they cause the powers of the consciousness-based rationality to unfold in her to even greater power and might and overcome everything evil, villainous and perverted. The enemies ultimately only contribute to the growth of the one who thinks consciously and creationally and to the recognition of the truth. They want the evil, terrible and bad for the truly thinking one. They think they can destroy her through criticism, know-it-all attitude, lies and calumnies, through objections, irrational claims and irrational teachings, through ridicule and condemnation. But they only harm themselves, because their doing is evidence of foolishness and unknowledgeness, and from this the one thinking creationally learns even more and becomes still greater and mightier in the spirit and in the consciousness. Are such truths, perhaps, manipulative suggestions? It would be a delusion to maintain that, because it is completely wrong. These are absolute truths. Generally, the lives of those who think wrongly, who are confusingly led and who are dependent on religions, are full of evil suggestions, full of imaginary concepts, irrational teachings, and delusional assumptions. The only possibility and the only means of remedying these injuries are to fundamentally recognize and to follow the truths that deactivate all human brain delusions, and to allow the highest creational spiritual and, of course, the material consciousness-based powers to prevail. All unreal suggestions and human imaginations become corrected by the human being realizing, I am a part of the creation, which animates me as a part piece, as spirit. But the knowledge that all things are imaginations and illusions, except the creational spiritual power, truth and reality, will by no means diminish the keenness which the human being unfolds in the life, but rather propel her to unexpected heights. Only that which is true, and which will remain truth, can be regarded as truth, something on which one can rely in eternal times and which is never and under no circumstances ever in need of revision. Truth never has to be adapted to another and a new time, because it is permanent for all times. It is eternally remaining the same and always sounds the same, even if it is spoken in other words. It is the rock upon which one can build in eternal times and in all spaces. The truth was before the life, and the truth is also after it. What only has a short-term continuance is a danger, a bad deception, an irrational teaching. Creation and truth are always the same, today and tomorrow, they are always remaining the same and of eternally equal value. They do not change, neither by name nor by form, as the creation and the truth are nameless and formless. So the human being is to hold fast onto the creational, since this alone is the truth. The truth is that which is immortal, like the creation as such, it is that which is eternal in time, that which is relatively absolutely fully developed, that which is worth all energies and the total investment of will by the human being, because with it the human being does not fall prey to any deception. Hence, he is to hold fast onto the truth and is to become unshakable in always equally lasting stillness, joy, knowledge, love, strength, and essence of wisdom in all things. The creational alone is endless essence of wisdom and endless truth, with which not one iota of erroneous assumption is possible. Hence, the human being is to take power from the creational essence of wisdom and is to seek her light in her own spirit as well as in her consciousness. The truthfully human being knows well that he is not able to move her hand in the space without touching the creational myriads of times, since it is ever present in all times and spaces. The true and real human being is full of joy when he knows about the truth that the unendingly and undescribably powerful creational is ever present and surrounds him wherever he may go. The creational is full of endless peace, full of endless cognition, and relatively most total absolutely full development. It is the source of all miracles of the highest spiritual consciousness, which is present all around, inside like outside. Her joy is as endless as the spiritual life itself. In order to make rapid spiritual and consciousness-based progress, the creationally thinking human being regards everything and everyone as creational. As soon as he sees something, he sees the creational. Behind all, and also in the forms of manifestation of the creational itself, the creational always stands in front of him/her. That is why the creation-thinking human being does not walk this way and that way in order to achieve the highest level of experience, but rather finds always the best place to gather recognition and experience right where he happens to be. Her spirit that is to be developed and her consciousness are in him/her and not in any other place. Through her own thinking and acting, he must form spirit and consciousness. From this cognition her attitude becomes a dignified place, and also all things with him/her become dignified, also the ground under her feet. The creation-thinking human being does not consider the future to be the time to experience the creation and her spirit dwelling in him/her, but rather the immediate present, wherethrough however he lives in the eyes of the normal human being, who is poor in consciousness, already in the most distant future, often completely misunderstood. For the true creation-thinking human being, the time is not someday, but always in the immediate present. For him/her, it is not necessary to see physically to see the truth. He begins to search in him/herself, and the truth becomes ever more real to him/her, because for her material consciousness her spirit is after all the all-seeing presence. No word that is spoken anywhere remains unheard by him/her. To make faster progress, the human being living based on this direction acoustically extracts the sound of the truth from every sound he hears, so that every sound enters her material consciousness and fixes itself. Likewise, everything reminds him/her of the creational and the immediate truth. Every circumstance is a creational circumstance, each opportunity a creational opportunity. The creation-conscious human being lives and works in such cognition, and thereby he advances innerly. The great, the spiritual, is for him/her present in her innermost, because in the cognition of the truth the unending dwells in the finite. And in every human being the unending has its seat, something that however only very few are able to recognize. Because awakening the unending requires rational logic and a state of being free of unreal teachings. But awakening the unending and letting it become effective is the culmination point of the life, the relatively highest possible consciousness-based and spiritual relative absolute fulfillment. Those who are rich in the consciousness become the instrument by which the creation expresses the spiritual realm. It is this excellence of the creation that causes the firmament to arise. The ones who are rich in the consciousness are free of all boundaries of a restriction and of the material selfish ego consciousness, and therefore in constant contact with the creation as such. With the human beings the difficulty of the material principles still prevails. However, in not too distant a time, the earthly science will discover the principle of the creational in the material. This is because the creation is included in everything created, in everything that unfolds and further develops itself. Only the unlimited spirit and the creation as such signify true freedom, true relatively highest possible absolutely full development, true cognition, might, love, knowledge, truth, and essence of wisdom. They are all, in their realistic absoluteness, the creational as such. Therefore, to attain anything truly veritable in the life, the human being must hold on to the spiritual, the unlimited, and the unlimitable. Everything that is limited and limitable produces unreal things and problems. However attractive it may seem, it will nevertheless one day become the source of problems and unrealities. The finite things of all forms are unnatural to the innermost nature, to the spirit, and are still strange to the human being. And so he also cannot recognize them as truth and cannot love them without inflicting the heaviest suffering on him herself. The finite things are always and at all times afflicted with some deficiencies, because everything that is finite brings with it problems and difficulties. If the human being loves or possesses something finite, it has at least the deficiency that it is transient with absolute certainty. He might love it however much according to the human sense of love, but when its time has come, it passes, and he mourns over the loss of it. The limited, however, still has weaknesses in other respects. Even if it does not perish immediately, it is at least subject to the change. When it is filled with human love for a blink of an eye, it may be displaced by or filled with human hatred for the next blink of an eye. Whether it is a thing, which changes or perishes, or a human being, who changes his/her attitude towards his/her next one negatively, the result is always sorrow and suffering, while the unlimitable never changes and does not fall victim to alterations, because it is of unlimitable faithfulness and absolute permanence of value. When essence of wisdom and truth dawn in the human being and his/her consciousness based as well as spiritual knowledge increases, when universal love leads him/her and his/her life becomes prosperousness for him/her and others, then the cognition of the truth has matured in him/her. Then he will become conscious of the part of the creation in him/her, of the spirit of the spiritual realm. The creation is present in spiritual love and essence of wisdom. Whoever strives for spiritual light and spiritual love, will have the gate to the creation to open to him/her. If the human being loves the truth, then he loves that which is relatively absolutely fully developed and wonderful and manifests the spiritual realm in itself, because it is also the way to the realm of the essence of wisdom. May the human being become conscious of the creational presence and let the spiritual intelligence shine forth from everything. He is to recognize that even in the wide, unending, and open space, the eyes of the creational are directed towards him/her and that the creation is the true intelligence, and sees him/her with the eyes that retain everything and are endowed with senses that are able to give an answer to everything. He shall therefore consciously live spiritually under the eyes of the creational, live with the consciousness of the spiritual, which is infinite power, of which he must always be conscious. In that case he can never be powerless.